Good evening and welcome to our Senior School Offer Holders event. I'm sorry it's not in person, but the COVID-19 world prevents us from doing what we normally do. As I stated in my recording, which I hope you've had a chance to see, this live element is the second of two parts, with the pre-recorded information still available on our website. Just to recap, my name is David Lloyd and I'm Headmaster of Solihull in its entirety, 3 to 18 and over 2 campuses. The Prep School on the St Martin's campus and the Senior School here on the Warwick Road campus. Both of my daughters have gone through Solihull, now at university, so I have the luxury of being able to view the school through both a teacher lens and a parent lens. With me in this session is the head of the Senior School, Mr. Sean Morgan, and the head of the Lower School, Mr. Michael Gledhill. The Lower School comprises years 7, 8 and 9, or as we call them, the thirds, the shells and the fourths. The school is now 460 years old, is a Christian foundation school with an all-faith approach, and we are very proud of our history and our historic connection with the borough. Indeed, all new pupils and staff enjoy a lesson on the school's history in the school archive, led by our dedicated archivist and historian, Mr. Loynton. We occupy approximately 75 acres in the centre of Solihull and have a wonderfully interesting mix of facilities, ranging from the Victorian to the contemporary. Improving facilities is a never-ending project, and I'd like to share some recent examples with you, particularly as we are remote on this occasion. A second artificial pitch, the Clovelly pitch. The original pitch, the Wilcox pitch, had a new grass carpet laid at the same time. Hockey is hugely popular and we employ 3 Olympians on the staff. And due to the recent merger, we now have 3 artificial pitches in total. 170 solar panels on the top of the George Hill building, helping to reduce our carbon footprint. It's fair to say our community has a very full green agenda. The Cooper building, a bespoke build for our 6th form over 4 floors. The Bushell Hall, not new, but our fabulous 800-seater concert hall and where we would ordinarily be right now. Floodlit netball courts, allowing for important winter practice and matches. New food and nutrition facilities. This is both a curricular and a co-curricular subject. And one example of co-curricular provision is preparing pupils for university independence, hopefully returning home as excellent and willing chefs. The David Turnbull Music School, named after a former director of music, and where we stage our regular informal concerts. The Martin Garner Building for outdoor education, which caters for the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme, the Combined Cadet Force, and our internal Terriers programme. And a new refectory, which opened 12 months ago and provides excellent food and choice, and all in a very modern and convivial setting. Turning to academic matters and our recent inspection by the Independent Schools Inspectorate, in which we achieved the highest outcome possible, a double excellent. This is the highest grade in both metrics, pupils' achievements and pupils' personal development. Our aim is for all pupils to fulfil their academic potential, and academic enrichment is one of our big 6 co-curricular areas, and includes things such as debating, public speaking, the extended project qualification, and stretch and challenge opportunities for all pupils. In addition, we have a comprehensive post-16s pathway support, including apprenticeships and UCAS, as you would expect, a medic society for budding doctors, vets and dentists, the Engineering Education Scheme, a leading Oxbridge programme and much more. Indeed, this year, 8 of our pupils have received offers from Oxford and Cambridge universities, 2 for law, 2 for veterinary science, 2 for natural sciences, 1 for geography and 1 for PPE, politics, philosophy and economics. So moving on to results, last year we achieved the following. At GCSE, 23% of all grades were a 9, the very highest grade. 48% of grades were 9 to 8, and 73% of grades were 9 to 7. So, nearly 3/4 were at 7 and above, and half at 9 and 8. And at A level, 25% of all grades were at A star, 1/4. 62% of all grades were at A star to A, so nearly 2/3. And 92% or almost all were at A star to B. And finally, I would like to say a little about our Novus curriculum. We have listened to employers, universities and researchers on the so-called skills gap, and we have considered the attributes we think pupils require for life in the 21st century. And our new practice is driven by 4 clear objectives. The desire for pupils to be flexible, front-footed, grounded and giving. And if we break things down even further, we want pupils to be resilient, to manage uncertainty, and to develop growth mindsets over fixed mindsets. And we have seen much evidence of this during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Gledhill will say more on this, and I encourage you to watch the Novus video. Thank you for listening, and I will see you all later in the live Q&A session. I'll now hand you over to Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Headmaster. Good evening, everyone. Now, whilst an amazing campus, impressive buildings and fabulous teaching and learning facilities are certainly very nice to have, great schools are about people, not just bricks and mortar. And I speak from the heart when I say that every day I am surrounded by just that, great people. Those people teach, administrate, they garden, they cook, and all stops in between. But what strikes me on a daily basis also, and certainly visitors when they come to visit our school, is how great the pupils are, how polite, how respectful, how motivated, how committed, how interesting, and how happy they are. I wish, of course, that you were meeting the people I describe this evening. Unfortunately, the closest you will have got is listening to them or seeing them on the webpage, videos and films. Now, a significant reason why our staff and pupils are as they are is because all members of the school community embrace and personify our 3 school stated aims: ambition, opportunity and community. Ambition for ourselves, for each other and for our school. Opportunity, creating it for ourselves and others, really utilising it and making the very most of it. Community, always mindful of our responsibilities to others in and out of school, and also the responsibility we all have for the planet. And also our school motto, Perseverantia, particularly relevant at the moment as we continue to persevere through the pandemic and all that it has presented us with. Our aim, ultimately, is for all pupils to fulfil their potential both inside and outside the classroom, and to do so in a very happy yet balanced way. You will have heard us reference our Big Six, and you may well have already accessed the recordings on the website. Our Big Six complement our curriculum and ensure that opportunities for stretch and challenge are in place throughout. Each of the 6 areas have a specific member of staff in charge, and I will briefly introduce each activity to you. Academic enrichment, where, as has already been mentioned, debating and the extended professional qualification loom large, but also LAMDA, RADA, our Law Society and Olympiads are strong features plucked from a very long list, all designed to inspire and foster a love of learning and a real thirst for knowledge. Community relations, the second of our Big Six. Our charitable giving is extensive and very much pupil-driven. Our giving is of time, compassion and advice, as well as money, working closely with our local, regional and national partners. In the current week, our energies are very much involved in a hot meal distribution scheme and laptop initiative, ensuring that those in need across the borough of Solihull are appropriately nourished and have access to a laptop and the internet to facilitate remote learning. The school is very, very proud of the links fostered, home and abroad, and the concept of giving and being supportive, generous and altruistic are central to our school ethos and aims. The third, performing arts. Opportunities for drama and dance are legion. Our Bushell Hall, where I'm standing now, with integral drama studio and copious prep, rehearsal and dressing rooms, plays host to a myriad of concerts, plays, dances and musicals on an annual basis. Music, the fourth member of the group. Our musicians enjoy the Bushell Hall, but also our state-of-the-art David Turnbull Music School. And with over 40 musical groups to choose from, there's certainly something for everybody. We are a Steinway Initiative School and therefore fortunate to have 3 Steinway pianos for our pupils to learn on and perform on. Our many and varied choirs prepare and sing out of our chapel, and our singers and musicians sing and play annually in prestigious venues around Europe. The fifth, outdoor education. We are incredibly fortunate to have our very own mountain cottage in the foothills of Mount Snowdon. Our shell formers, year 8, spend a week there practicing the skills they acquired during the 3rd form, year 7 year, via our Terriers programme. Opportunities to join our Combined Cadet Force and the Duke of Edinburgh Award Scheme follow, with huge swathes of pupils across all year groups immersed in the challenge that they each provide. For many, their outdoor education experience culminates in a long-haul expedition, most recently to Everest Base Camp and the Yukon, Northern Canada. And finally, sport, health and fitness, which plays a huge role in the lives of many, if not all pupils. And we pride ourselves on not only developing core skills, facilitating fun and enjoyment with the less confident, but also ensuring that our national and international performers across a range of sports are provided with elite level advice, preparation and input. Opportunities to excel or simply take part are extensive. At home, through games afternoons, house matches and our ambitious fixture lists, but also via sports tours abroad, from Holland to South Africa, from Malaysia to New Zealand, and many short and long-haul stops in between. Trips and visits related to our Big Six and all areas of school life are considerable. In a normal year, our historians would be in Washington, our Germanists would be in Berlin, and a whole host of pupils would be enjoying more local and regional excursions and field trips. Such events have even continued in the remote world. Our classicists who visited New York's Museum of Modern Art last term are about to visit St. Petersburg this Friday, whilst inter-school debating and university language workshops, amongst many other initiatives, try and bridge the gap that lockdown has presented. Let me finish by shining a light on 4 organisations that we work very, very closely with. The first is our very active alumni body, the Old Silhillians. When you leave Solihull School, by definition, you become an Old Silhillian. A fabulous organisation that we tap into for careers guidance, mentoring, interview practice, and much, much more. A more passionate and pro-school group of people you are unlikely to meet. We often use the phrase, "you never leave." It's true. The tie to this place is extraordinary. Secondly, our Parents Association is incredibly active, galvanising the parent body by a series of exciting and enjoyable events and raising significant amounts of money in the process. We also work very closely with our 2 partner schools, Reynolds Cross School in Solihull and Tile Cross School in Birmingham. Our work with both schools is mutually beneficial and a really felt thing, enriching the respective communities in the process. That's enough from me. Thank you so much for listening. It now gives me great pleasure to hand over to Mr. Gledhill, Head of the Lower School.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan, and good evening, everybody. Speaking directly to the boys and girls for a moment on the other side of a screen, sat at home with your parents, siblings, the cat, the dog, and indeed anything else in between. Huge congratulations on being offered a place to the senior school. I commend the resolve and fortitude of you all for navigating entrance examination day in such a wonderful way, given the circumstances. I will now explain how the pastoral support and care works at Solihull, leading on to how we focus on pupil personal and academic development, before leaving you to catch up on any of the pre-recorded films on our website, released on Friday the 5th of February, before we reconvene for a live question and answer session with senior colleagues at 7:15. At Solihull, we believe in the positive effects that our tutor system has on the welfare, care, and development of all our pupils. Put simply, the form tutor is the heart and soul of our pupils' world as they travel with them through the year groups, forming positive relationships with the form groups as a collective and also, of course, with the individual. In addition, the pastoral and welfare provision at Solihull is nuanced and multifaceted. From heads of year that also travel with the pupils through the year groups, to 2 deputy heads of section, with a respective focus of transition and pastoral, plus personal development and welfare. From our wellbeing and personal development lead in Mrs. Rooney, to peer mentors, wellbeing buddies, school benchers, and in more within the pupil community. From a full-time chaplain, a dedicated learning support team, plus our health centre with 3 full-time nurses, and our bespoke offering of school counselling offered by a specialist third-party provider, Safeline, for both reactive and proactive support. All overseen by our Assistant Head Welfare, Mr. Tom Emmett, and Deputy Head Pastoral, Mrs. Rachel Spears. These various facets liaise with the lower school team in order to provide the high quality pastoral care for which we strive. The tools and skills of being grounded, giving, flexible and front-footed are key for all our pupils. A school aim of community is vital for pupil personal development, both within school, the local area, and with a view to developing a global outlook also. From the start of senior school life, that sense of community is no more keenly nurtured than by the tutor and tutor group. As part of our Novus curriculum initiative, we embed tutor time not only for form periods each day, but also for small group tutor seminars, such that tutors and tutees have more time dedicated to high quality and personalised pastoral support to monitor progress both in and out of the classroom. In addition, from this September, pupils in our third form will receive bespoke project-based learning on timetable with their tutor to develop wider synoptic learning skills as part of their educational journey. With regard to academic studies, our smaller class sizes of a maximum of 23 allow greater individual learning per pupil in lessons. We also facilitate form groups being taught all together for the first year to deepen the bonds and connections between them. Pupils in our third form study 6 hours each of maths and English per fortnight, with over 5 hours of science, a healthy diet of physical education, and a dedicated games afternoon, plus 4 hours of Latin and Spanish, with over 2.5 hours for the humanities of history, geography, religious studies, and the same for the practical subjects in art, design, technology, computing, and music. And last, but by no means least, Terriers. Our outdoor education programme, led by trained sixth form volunteers to third form groups of approximately 10 in number with teacher support, to develop a range of life skills, such as orienteering, to how to stay safe on a bike or in the water, plus over 1 hour of well-being and personal development on timetable. We also have a specialist learning support department, which can offer a range of intervention as pupils progress through the school. The notion of pupil voice and opportunities for seeking and indeed taking on leadership roles in many different forms is also key to help foster pupils maximise their educational pathway. We have a number of opportunities, from peer-elected form representatives to give pupil voice for school council meetings, to trained mental health first aid ambassadors, to our benchers and house captains at different levels within the school, as well as leadership roles within the co-curricular activities offered. Turning for a moment to the school house system, which thrives through a range of co-curricular activities, quizzes, the famous House Mile Run, sports and academic competitions, through to even a house bake-off, and indeed so much more. The identity of belonging to a house spans pupils from across the year group, where pupils are placed into one of Featherstone, Yago, Pole, Shenstone or Windsor. The house events also enable pupils to see older pupils lead, as events are coordinated and managed by sixth form house captains. Finally, looking ahead to transition, we strive to achieve our school aims of ambition, opportunity and community from the summer before the September joining date through our transition events, where we will cater for both on-site activities and also, if needed, remote access. I work with the admissions team and our dedicated lead, Mrs. Brown, Deputy Head of Section, Pastoral and Transition, who liaise closely with the circa 40 prep and primary schools, old and new alike, from where pupils join each year, including schools from the Solihull area and indeed wider area also. all in the name of ensuring you are as settled as possible before joining us in September, whether pupils know many others joining with them or perhaps nobody at all. This includes an outdoor education day trip to bond through shared experiences scheduled in the first few weeks in September each academic year. So, we hope this live talk, coupled with the videos released to you last Friday, have given you as good an insight as possible in the circumstances without being able to be with us here tonight. We will now move on to the next part of the evening. Boys and girls, we have prepared some activities for you to get involved in whenever you wish, which can be found on the dedicated website link sent to your parents last week. Feel free to send those in to us via the dedicated email address. We'd love to see your work. And parents, we'll now take a short interlude where you'll have time to view some of the pre-recorded films on that dedicated website. Please also feel free to get your questions into us via this live event. We shall reconvene at 7:15 with the deputy heads of academic, teaching and learning innovation, and pastoral, as well as the bursar, myself, Mr. Morgan, and Mr. Lloyd. Thank you for listening.
Good evening. I hope you found those presentations useful. This is the part of the proceedings when you have the chance to put your questions to the senior team or to ask for a little more detail on any particular area of school life that you like. I'm Lucy Lunt, I'm the Director of Development and Alumni Relations here. As has been said, we're extremely lucky at Solihull to have a vibrant and very supportive alumni community who give back to the school in a number of ways, but they're especially helpful when it comes to giving advice on careers and university applications. So, your questions. Thank you for the ones you've already submitted, and you can go on doing so via the chat function, and we'll try to get through as many as we can before 8 o'clock. To answer your questions, we have Mr. David Lloyd, the headmaster, Mr. Sean Morgan, head of the senior school, Mr. Richard Bate, the bursar, and the 3 deputy heads who all have special areas of responsibility. Mr. David Morgan, academic, Ms. Harford Fox, teaching, learning and innovation, Mrs. Rachel Spears, who looks after all pastoral issues, and we're joined by Mr. Michael Gledhill, who, as you know, is head of the lower school. We have a lot of questions already to get through. This first one has been raised by 2 or 3 families. Ms. Harford Fox, I think, is probably best placed to answer it. The Novus curriculum and project-based learning have been mentioned a couple of times. Please, can you expand on that a little?
Hi, Lucy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the Novus curriculum, I think that started maybe 3 years ago. It's a passion project for us, and it was asking questions about what skills young people would really need for the 21st century. And there's a video, I think, that will give you more details if you're more interested. But what we realised quite quickly was that it would probably take a quite complex set of interventions to help us equip young people with the skills we thought they need. And we really recognised that knowledge-based learning, like a traditional curriculum, was still really valuable, right? So having subjects the way that we've always learnt them still had great value, firstly because knowledge helps us to make connections, it helps us to innovate, it helps us to solve problems. We have to know things to do those things. But secondly, we're quite practical, and we recognise that GCSEs and A-levels are still important in terms of success and getting to the places you want to get to. But also, learning knowledge in that kind of siloed traditional way doesn't necessarily equip young people with all the skills they needed. You know, when you learn geography separately from history, separately from English, separately from maths, you're not necessarily learning through that intellectual flexibility that we really think is going to be necessary in the 21st century. So each section of the school, in the lower school, in the middle school, in the sixth form, we've created additional curriculum opportunities that ask pupils not only to start to make those links, to think flexibly, to be a bit more synoptic, but also to look at more complicated, authentic real world problems, to work collaboratively and to work independently. So that begins right at the beginning in the third form in the shells, when their tutor will have a session every week with them, initially building their understanding of the 4 key Novus traits, which are flexibility, front-footedness, groundedness and giving, but then getting them to look at some real life problems. You know, maybe they design a social media campaign for a real charity working with other students, or maybe they look at how we identify truth. And so those kinds of questions will then help them not only in their academic study, but as they move forward, having the deeper thinking skills that we think they're really going to need. Hopefully that explains it briefly, Lucy.
Thank you, it does. We've had a number of questions about pastoral care, which of course we know is of vital importance to all parents. And so I'm going to merge a couple of those for you, Mrs. Spears. Please, can you talk about the pastoral care system, how it works? And another parent would like you to explain the role of form tutors.
Hi, yes, of course. So pastoral system is absolutely at the heart of everything we do and is everybody's responsibility, every member of staff's, with the aim of having happy and healthy children in our school, which absolutely allows them to succeed and to enjoy their education, which is, of course, our aim. There is a video on the website called Our Pastoral Provision, and I'm sure some of you have already seen that, and that explains a lot about the structure of our pastoral system, right from the headmaster right through to the form tutor. Now, clearly the form tutor is absolutely key and is crucial to your child. They are the person that they will see every day, every morning. And you've just heard Ms. Harford-Fox talk about the Novus curriculum. Well, as part of that as well, there are these one-to-one meetings or small group meetings each half term. And those are really essential in helping to develop the skills that the children will have that will help them as they negotiate their way, not just in school, but as they grow up and into the wider world. So looking at being resilient, looking at how they can support each other. And in terms of the pastoral system, how a sense of community is created and how they support each other as they begin their journey at our school. There are a number of people there to help. So the Learning Support Department, we're extremely fortunate to have our own chaplain. There is a welfare team, and we're very fortunate to have our own nursing team and health centre. Add to this heads of year, the deputy heads of section, and all of these key individuals mean that the pastoral system works for your child by there being a number of people that they can go to if they need to speak to somebody or they wish to raise something. Now, of course, a pastoral system also works with you as parents. Communication is key. So working together between school, your child and you at home. And then also listening to your child, pupil voice, the initiatives we have here for wellbeing and peer mentors, so that perhaps a child who's just starting at senior school would like to speak to a peer who's not that much older than themselves, who may have had an experience that they wish to talk to, and not very often talking through it with someone close to their own age is something that they find extremely valuable, and it very much fits into our sense of community and supporting each other. So there is a number of people, a number of things in place that will help, but all with the premise of making your child's start here a positive one, and for them to feel listened to, their opinions valued, and then hopefully they settle in and enjoy their time here with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Spears. Carrying on with that pastoral theme, Mr. Gledhill, we have a question about transition. Moving into the senior school is a big change and can be quite daunting. Please, can you explain what steps are taken to ensure that the period leading up to the start of September term and those crucial first few weeks go smoothly?
Thank you, Lucy. A great question. As I think as Mr. Morgan said in his presentation, we are in the business of getting to know people really as much as possible. And by that, leading up to September, we put in a range of different events actually. And that can range from an afternoon of activities where pupils get to know our campus as well as each other, whether they know people that are joining or indeed not. And that's based around activities related to the school. Then later on, we hold a welcome evening, which is for pupils and parents alike, where they get to know a little bit more about the school, the sort of nitty-gritty, as it were, of what happens exactly in each timetable of the day, as well as then discovering the form tutor and indeed form group and form room. That then is indeed followed by an induction day where pupils sample a day of senior school lessons, as our pupils do sort of here now. So they are being immersed as much as possible in a supportive and indeed graduated way, leading through then. During the summer holidays, we have a specific lead in Mrs. Brown as the deputy head of section, with a particular focus on transition, who leads on a bespoke activity workbook or work booklet for pupils to engage with if they choose, and show us some of their findings in September. And then before the September sort of formal start date, we have that induction morning with new blazers and new shoes, new bags, etc., to go through the nuts and bolts of lockers, timetables before that first full day. So I suppose in total that's amounting to just under a week of time where pupils are graduated into their pathway of joining a senior school. And obviously it doesn't stop there. You know, one of the main things that we try to embed is organisation in that transition from a primary setting and indeed to a secondary setting. And that's monitored then by the form tutor and indeed head of year in post as an ongoing pattern, as well as then encouraging co-curricular activities and of course the transition day away from campus, which I can see that someone has asked about also, where we look to build those team building skills and bonding away from campus in a more informal setting. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mr. Clevill. I'm now going to turn to a couple of questions that we've had about the academic side of life in school. I think Mr. David Morgan, if you could answer this one. Please, could you tell me more about the setting structure and what is the average size of each set?
Yes, thank you. If I talk first about set sizes, in our lower school, we would normally run set sizes up to 23. But in practice, a number of them are smaller than that, and that would go both for tutor groups and for academic teaching groups. For some of the technical subjects, such as art and design technology, we run in smaller numbers, often only up to 16. When it comes to the GCSE years, many an options set will be smaller in size, and then in the sixth form, we cap sets at 14. That would be again for both tutor group and also for teaching groups. And when we're thinking about set sizes, I'd also quite like to mention that we don't have minimums, so that if you wandered around our sixth form centre, for example, you might see that there would be sets of only one pupil, perhaps, for certain small particular A levels. So that shows how open we are to keeping our full curriculum available. If I could move on to setting, the first clear message is that there is no setting in Year 7 in our third form. We like to allow pupils to establish themselves, to settle. People develop at different paces. There is setting from Year 8, from the shell form onwards, in mathematics only. Maths is a subject really where sometimes you do need to ask different questions to fully get the best out of the pupils. But it's also a flexible setting structure where people can move between sets. Then there's some banding at GCSE English, but overall setting is in a very light touch here. We believe in differentiation between pupils within lessons, and we would always want to avoid labelling pupils too early, allowing people to develop at their own pace.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. It has been mentioned before, but Ms. Harford-Fox, how do you ensure that stretch and challenge is for all pupils in the school?
Sorry, not unmute. I knew I was going to be the person who didn't unmute, and I was that person. Yes, it was. I was just listening to Mr. Morgan and thought, yeah, that's exactly right. I think in terms of Stretch and Challenge, we call our program Stretch and Challenge rather than Gifted and Talented, and I think we do that because I don't think that pupils can be sort of stretched out onto a line on inability. I think human beings are much more complicated, and so we do see each child as an individual, and I suppose we respond to it in two ways, really. One is to try and inspire and excite. And so we have like this massive co-curricular enrichment program, right? I think we have over 40 academic clubs and societies, from astronomy and Lego club through to quite high level sort of Jaguar Land Rover engineering and one of the biggest debating societies in the country. And a lot of our pupils are engaged in that every week. And we have, in addition, like lectures and Olympiads. We regularly rank in the top nationally in maths and biology and all of these different kind of Olympiads. So that's the inspiring bit, and gets people excited about ideas and to find their passion. And the second thing is kind of stretch, and I think that's about really being known. So when Mr. Morgan talked about how we don't sort of set that much, it's because we have these classes and we give teachers the time and space to really know the pupils in that class. And so what they're aiming to do, and everything in our assessment policy and everything in our teaching and learning culture, is to constantly understand each individual child and then ask them the question that makes them just go that little bit further and dig that little bit deeper into an idea. And so every child is constantly developing, because nobody comes to an end, right? We're all thinking and building our skills, me included, all of the time. And so that's the kind of Stretch and Challenge culture. And I was really excited. I think this year, obviously, we haven't done surveys on this, but the year, like about the last time we did a survey, which wasn't that long ago, I think 97% of our pupils said they felt really stretched. And that, for me, speaks to them being known, supported and challenged in the classroom, which is really exciting.
Thank you. I think this one is for Mr. Sean Morgan. Snowdonia Cottage was mentioned. My son loves the outdoors. Is this an important part of the curriculum?
Is this an important part of the curriculum? For me, it's a big yes. I think the fact that we use the outdoors as a medium to get the groups in the third form, in our Year 7 year, to know each other via the Woodlands camp experience in the first early weeks of the Year 7 year, I think sends out a message as to how important we feel experiencing and being comfortable in the outdoors is. During the course of that first year in the senior school, the boys and girls on a Thursday would don their red fleeces and their action trousers and their walking boots or shoes. And for a big portion of each Thursday morning, currently on the timetable, they would engage in activities that aren't maths, physics and chemistry. They would engage in activities such as mountain craft or knots or navigation, orienteering, campcraft, and all that entails. The skills that they would then learn as Year 7s on a weekly basis through the Terriers programme can then be taken and banked and used when they experience a week of outdoor life in the foothills of Snowdonia at our mountain cottage, the David Fricker Mountain Cottage, where again they engage in all sorts of activities on the kind of rugged Welsh coastline, from coasteering to climbing Snowdon, and all sorts of activities in and around the area that fosters naturally. And I guess at that point, if in this case your son or anybody's daughter as well has really developed a love of the outdoors, then they can extend their experience via our combined cadet force. They can join the RAF or the Army section. They can also engage in the bronze level of the Duke of Edinburgh award scheme, and of course that can take you to the heady heights of achieving gold and being commended at the Palace in your kind of final year of the process and programme. For many, the culmination of their outdoor experience would then be the opportunity that many grasp, which is to take part in one of our long haul expeditions. I talked of the Yukon and Everest Base Camp in the presentation earlier. I could add to that Ladakh, the Zanskar Valley, or South America or Norway, trips that have left these shores in relatively recent years. And of course, it would also be possible to help achieve your gold Duke of Edinburgh award by using one of those expeditions to cement kind of your worth as a gold award holder. Short, absolutely. I would say that it would suit your son. The environment would suit your son if he was particularly outdoorsy. And actually, even if boys and girls weren't kind of naturally predisposed to enjoy the outdoors before they join us, there are certain things along the road that we would enthuse them about, that if they weren't excited about the outdoors before, I think by the time they leave school, that would be the case.
Thank you very much. Bursa, we have a fees question. It's regarding lunches, books, trips, etc. Are these included in the fees, and how and when are the fees invoiced?
Thank you. Yes, that comes to me. I'm the one that has the bad aspect here. Everybody says how wonderful it is, but I'm afraid at all costs. Yeah, fees are set annually, but they are invoiced termly, and fees are due on the first day of each term. Having said that, it is possible to pay monthly if you wish, through a program called School Fee Plan, and the details of that are on the website. That's externally managed by an outside company. Equally, a handful of parents do pay upfront for the year. We don't offer a reduction, but you're very welcome to do so if that gives you peace of mind. Fees cover pretty much everything, and certainly fees include lunches. They include the cost of public exams when your son or daughter get there to GCSE and A-levels, books, stationery, and the sort of day-long trips that we've talked about has been mentioned in previous parts of the presentation, the Woodlands camp that Mr. Morgan talked about, and other day trips. I'm afraid that doesn't cover trips to Ladakh, Peru, or anything else that's been previously mentioned. Those come as separately. But equally, they pretty much cover anything. You won't be seeing any hidden extras coming your way unexpectedly, I can assure you of that. Just one other thing on fees that I quite often get asked, and I did see a thing on the Q&A come through about bursaries. We have responded to everybody who has applied for a bursary. If you think you've applied but haven't heard from us, can I suggest that you get in direct contact with us tomorrow, and we can investigate that. And I think that's all I've got to say on fees, I'm afraid.
Well, following on from that, we have another lunch question.
Okay.
Which is not the main reason I work here, but it helps. Someone has asked, is it compulsory to have a school lunch? And if so, what variety and quality can my daughter expect?
Lunch, yes, well, that's a subject dear to my heart as well. Lunch has been a challenge this year because of COVID and restrictions that we've put in and had to put in. And let's hope, fingers crossed, for everybody that we're back to as close to normal as we can be by September. Lunch is compulsory for every pupil up to the upper fifth or year 11. So you will be expected to take lunch. As I say, lunches are included within the fees. What options do we have? Well, for lunch, there are typically three hot options, including a vegetarian option. There is a halal option for those that wish to take it up, and that would be a variety of main courses, potatoes, vegetables, rice, etc., depending on what is on the menu. There's also a cold option for those that wish it, and an unlimited salad bar with lots of different types of salad, and we encourage that healthy eating. There is soup, there will be sandwiches as well, and for pudding there's hot and cold dessert options and a vast variety of fruit that we encourage the pupils to partake in. So there's a huge amount of choice. It is very much a high quality service. I think one or two people typically ask about special dietary limitations and issues. Yes, absolutely, we cater for those, and typically we would get you to talk to the school nurse, and also then we will get you to talk to our catering manager, who can just make sure that we've got the specialist menus and specialist food for those with a particular intolerance, for example. There's a vast variety, not a huge amount, but we cater for individual requirements. I think perhaps if I can just build on lunch whilst we're there, whilst we talk about food, We would also, there's a breakfast offering for those that wish to partake in it, and there's a morning tuck shop where we sell healthy snacks, and that's a very popular option for boys and girls aged 11, 12, 13, I can assure you. And equally, when they get to the sixth form, and the headmaster talks about the Cooper building, dedicated sixth form centre, in there's the Cooper Cafe, where the sixth form have a cafe open from 8 o'clock in the morning through to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that serves a variety of different sort of snacks and food. It's a very popular social place for the sixth formers. For those that wish to examine in a bit more detail, menus are on the website. I must say I should have checked before tonight. I would imagine that they are the menus for last term rather than this term, because obviously we've unfortunately not been at school this term, but the typical menu will be on the website for anybody to look at. Hope that answers everybody's question about food. I'm pleased to say that although you can only see a small part of me, food's an important part of my life, so I hope that answers it.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Spears, I think this question is for you. My child is not a natural joiner. He's a little bit shy. I'm concerned he will be reticent about taking advantage of the co-curricular side of life at Solihull. How can you encourage him to do so?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite normal as well. I think many children feel a little bit nervous and a little bit shy as they start at senior school. And part of our job as they arrive is to really encourage all children to get involved in some co-curricular opportunities. And you've heard an awful lot already this evening or via the website about the amount of opportunities that there are, that are available here. And those are before school, they're lunchtime, they're after school. So it really is up to your child to see when they might like to take part in something, whether they want to do it with their friends at lunchtime, whether it might be picking up another musical instrument and having a lesson before school. And one thing that's been really fantastic in the last sort of term and a half, when children have been unfortunately in and out of school, is still the amount of co-curricular that's been happening during distance learning, and clubs being run and pupils taking part, and their enthusiasm is just fantastic. And we've had such amazing work being done in those co-curricular clubs. And I think for a shy child, it is seeing what's done in those clubs and seeing their friends maybe really enjoying themselves that would inspire and motivate them to get involved. We talked a lot about our Novus curriculum, about being brave, about being proactive and helping each other. And part of a form tutor's role would be a conversation with a child who perhaps was slightly more reticent to say, well, what are your interests? What do you want to do? Are you a sporty person? Are you into debating? Are you into drama? Do you like outdoor pursuits? And it's finding that fit. And that's part of our role, to find how that individual child is going to succeed. So it's not sort of putting one child against each another, but looking at them as an individual. What are you going to get out of this? Through your participation in this, what other skills is it helping you with? And suddenly they'll find an area that they enjoy, that they succeed in, but more importantly, that they're just taking part in. And friendships and firm bonds are made, that last all through school then by them just taking that plunge. So a lot of encouragement and a lot of motivation to help them, but I can guarantee that your child will find a club that they really, really enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk about participation. Mr. Morgan, this one is about sport. Mr. Sean Morgan, my daughter really enjoys sport, but may not be a first team player. Will she get a chance to play in competitions?
Thank you, Lucy, very much. She will, absolutely. I I can tell you we have our third form games afternoon on a Friday. Personally, I think it's a great way to finish the week. I taught last year a third form class, the last lesson before lunch, and it was such a joy to finish the lesson knowing that every young person in front of me was taking part in an inter-school fixture for one of a number of teams during the course of the afternoon. So typically on a Friday afternoon, which is the year 7, the third form games afternoon, we would take almost all weeks, all of the boys and girls, or if we're receiving the school or schools to our kind of a home venue, all of the boys and girls would be playing against the school kind of on our fields rather than the opposition's. And some of the boys and girls, by definition, would be playing in an A team, some a B team, some a C team, some an E team. It matters not a jot. And the camaraderie amongst the squad as a whole, whether it's netball, whether it's hockey, whether it's cricket, whether it's rugby, is an absolute joy to see. And nor, of course, are those teams set in stone. There's huge movement as people become more confident in the environment or in themselves or with a particular skill that they've developed. And I know the sports staff are very keen to recognise improvement and reward it with elevation up through the teams. So absolutely, there's a range of teams across all sports in that year group that your daughter will get an opportunity to play in. It might not be the A team just in the first couple of weeks, but the aspiration to be in the A team will, I'm sure, allow that to happen in time. Perhaps also just to shine a light on the house structure, which in many ways is the breeding ground for school team selection, because each house, Featherstone, Jago, Pole, Shenstone, Windsor, would have teams themselves in all of the sports that we could name, which take place during those games afternoons or perhaps after school. So in short, yes, absolutely, your daughter would be able to play some competitive team sport as early as the first few weeks of her third form career with us. Thank you, Sean.
Headmaster, as you can imagine, we've had quite a few questions about the merger. I've picked this one. The merger with St Martin's has been a big change for the school. What challenges and advantages has it created?
Thank you, Lucy, and hello again, everyone. I was beginning to feel a little bit left out there, actually. Yes, the merger. Well, can I start by saying it was a good fit. The two schools very compatible, but I could never have predicted merging the schools during a global pandemic, and not being able to bring the communities together as we hoped. However, it still happened, and it happened incredibly well, albeit differently and often remotely. And we now have two thriving campuses, two thriving sites, the prep school over the road and the Warwick Road campus here. And on this campus, all 55 acres are now entirely for the seniors. That said, seniors do have access to both sites from time to time, and likewise with pupils at the prep school, and access to added sports facilities, such as I said earlier, 3 artificial pitches, 2 swimming pools, and as well as double the performing arts space and much more. But I suppose perhaps most significantly are the sort of synergistic gains, 2 schools that come together and bring with them teaching expertise, pupil voice, parents associations, alumni, and traditions to form an even better merged school. And just one current example that we're working on at the moment, and there are many of them, but this is just conversations being had right now, and that's the addition of dance to our academic curriculum throughout the age range up to A level. But as I said, there are many, many more examples of such initiatives. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you. Can I ask you, I want to get through as many questions as possible and we've only got 10 minutes left. Another one for the bursar. I note that you have an extensive transport network. How do you book a seat and is there any flexibility within the routes?
Yes, so yes, transport, yes, that's a perennial question. How do you book a seat? Well, we will be writing to everybody who accepts a place in May, asking them to return a response to what bus services they wish to access. I would ask, actually, though, that you do reply promptly to that. Provided you reply promptly and within a reasonable time frame that we'll put in the letter, we'll guarantee you a seat on a bus. Clearly, obviously, it's a moving feast, and we have a number of pupils who are leaving the school, no longer need the bus service, and your children, your sons and daughters will fill those seats. So it's a case of responding to the letter that we'll send out in May. The bus network, I think the question was, is there any flexibility? The bus network, it looks like the London Underground map is on our website. There are 6 services in the mornings and afternoons, as well as a couple now of dedicated prep school minibuses, and that's one of the results of the merger that the headmasters just talked about. So they go from all points. The timetables and the routes are on the website. And there's Sutton Coldfield, there's Edgbaston, there's Moseley, there's Kenilworth, there's Stratford, and I'm going to forget one I should know. Anyway, it's all on the website. If where you live is not particularly catered for, please do contact us. I can't guarantee that we'll be able to put on a service, but we'll do our best, because it could be that we've got 2 or 3 people who've requested a change. So yes, please ask. And we'll do what we can to help you. I've seen a couple of messages on the Q&A as well, if I can just pick that up. Bicycles, yes, a number of pupils and staff do cycle in. There are secure bike racks available, and I think people then the pupils will use their lockers to store helmets, etc. And I don't think I've got anything else to say on transport. Hopefully that's answered everything. Oh, actually, sorry, can I just one more? Sorry, forgive me, one more thing. You do book a seat for the whole service, so it's not possible to say, can I book just Tuesday and Thursday? You have to book a seat for the service. And the other thing to say, we do have a late bus that goes to Edgbaston and Moseley at 5:30 after co-curricular activities, and that's an increasingly popular service. And I have finished, I promise.
You have finished. Oh, good, good. A question for David Morgan. Going back to those crucial first few weeks, please could you give me some advice on how I should prepare my daughter for the start of term?
Yes, thank you. I like that question. I'm sure lots of parents are there in the summer thinking there's a big change happening, beginning senior school. What should we do? I'd like to be reassuring really and say, first of all, there's nothing specific that needs doing. We have faith in our choice. We have offered your son or your daughter a place and they will be ready in September. Holidays are holidays and should be enjoyed as holidays. If I could give some advice, it would be really an attitudinal one. We're really looking forward to meeting the children, the new third form in September, and it would be great if they were looking forward to coming too, if they were feeling positive and excited, maybe ready to do something new. So in a way, relax, there's nothing specific that's needed, but we do look forward to seeing your children in September. Thank you.
That's great, thank you. Mr. Cleddhill, did I read that all year 7s are taught together?
Thanks, Lucy. Yes, I did mention that in what I said earlier, but just to expand on what a few others have said actually on that note. We teach all of our third form together to deepen that sense of community and bonds between them really as a form group. That obviously isn't to say that pupils don't get opportunities outside their form group. We've spoken this evening about the range of co-curricular clubs and activities, and we have great faith in our ability as teachers really, especially over the last 3 to 5 years, we've invested a lot of time in teaching and learning around stretch and challenge, as Miss Harford Fox alluded to earlier, where we cater for pupils in their form groups in that first year so that everyone can meet their potential as best as possible. But it's something we've done for a few years. We're very in tune with it. We think it works incredibly well for getting pupils organised, consistent, and obviously there are plenty of opportunities away from the classroom to develop different friendships in co-curricular, and indeed matters such as terriers, for example, is split in different groups as well to give a little bit of variation. And as I think, as my colleague David Morgan said a moment ago, some of the practical subjects, for example, between food technology and design are split as well. So it's a healthy balance, but overall, yes, taught together for that first year indeed.
Okay, thank you. I like to get 4 questions in 6 minutes, so can we keep up tight answers? Mr. David Morgan again, a perennial question, but important. How much homework will my son get?
Thank you. Well, we do believe in homework. We believe that it can consolidate the learning in the classroom, absolutely. But we do know how busy our pupils are, so we don't believe in overburdening them. And I think we have a fairly rational structure. In the third form, in year 7, you would expect 2 25-minute homeworks a day. So that would be 10 pieces a week. And that 10 pattern follows right through logically to the 10 GCSEs most pupils take. Now, the question also wondered about how a parent might know what the homework was. There is a structure, there is a homework timetable. We'd also want to say that we'd want our pupils to be in line with the Nova Schools, front-footed, and to share their homework and the demands upon them with their parents. And the final thing I'd like to say, though, is that in the development of our new parent portal, there will be some very direct information about the homework that is required. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sean Morgan, I think this is a question that alludes back to the St Martin's merger. What's the gender balance at Solihull now?
Thanks, Lucy. The school as a whole is very, very close to an even split. So we're talking about the senior school. The senior school as a whole is very, very close to an even split. Never deviating from year group to year group with more than a kind of 60-40 swing either way. It might be of interest to some that girls arrived in the 6th form in 1973, and then we went fully co-educational in 2005, such that in 2021, in a senior school of 1100, just shy of 1100, there's a very even male-female gender balance.
Thank you. Danielle, there are a couple of questions along this line, but I'll use this one. Where typically do your upper 6th go when they leave school?
Yes, so I think we do, the vast majority of our pupils go to university. So I think over the last 3-year average, 88% of them went to their first choice university. About 66% of them went to Russell Group universities. But I would caveat that by saying that that what we actually want is to match the child to the course they want to do. So, last year we had a student turn down Oxford to do a course at St Andrews. We had a previous student turn down Oxford to do an engineering course at Leeds. So we really want them to make the best decision for them. There are brilliant courses at all sorts of universities. The other thing I would say is we've really seen a growth in apprenticeships. And so a lot of our pupils now go straight to KPMG or into sort of high-level tech companies, either doing degree programs through the apprenticeship or just courses through the apprenticeship. And I think what that speaks to is that we have, perhaps I genuinely think one of the best careers advisors in the country, and she meets with all students one-on-one at multiple points, and what she's trying to do is ask them the big questions about what they really want to do and find the very best route for them and the very best courses that actually equip them with the skills they want for the future. But all of our pupils are quite ambitious, but some of them end up being, film set designers, and some of them engineers or medics or Oxford students.
Thank you very much. We're a few minutes away from 8 o'clock, so I think his final question should be for the headmaster, and it's a good one, which is, what is so special about Solihull and why should I send my child here?
Thank you, Lucy. This is a question I asked and answer most years, and you will hear me draw on things that my colleagues have said tonight in answering this question. There are a few points, I believe. The first one is academic results and attitudes to learning, which Ms. Harford-Fox has talked about tonight. And pupils, I think pupils are intellectually curious, and they have a genuine love of learning, and it's for learning's sake. It's not just about the outcomes. And our pupils, in the most appropriate way, are risk takers and they're boundary pushers. And one only need look at, I'm an EPQ supervisor each year, and the range of EPQ titles is amazing. From conservation to truth, the study of DNA, and one year I supervised a project on footballers' salaries. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. The second thing, which has been mentioned a few times tonight, is our co-curricular breadth as provided by the Big Six, and we do expect all pupils to take advantage of the many and varied co-curricular opportunities. What else? Well, thirdly, I believe that we are an extremely innovative school, and there are so many examples. The Novus curriculum, which has been mentioned several times tonight. Our wellbeing and personal development department, wellbeing is on every pupil's timetable now, and the importance of mental health at school is really important as well. And another example that I think Mr. Morgan, Sean Morgan, mentioned tonight, and that is that we have Steinway Initiative school status. I had the real pleasure of going out to Germany and buying Steinway pianos, which are arguably some of the best in the world. Having said that about innovation, tradition is really important here as well, in our language and in our strong connection with the Old Silhillians. And what else? Finally, pupil leadership and voice. That's really important, as is the emphasis on soft skills, things like flexibility, communication, emotional intelligence, and teamwork. And I think if you were in the Bushell Hall tonight, listening to pupils speak, I am confident you would be impressed. And I mentioned, on a personal level, I'm a father of 2 Old Sills, and I think the school set them up tremendously well for life beyond the school gates. My children are both in their final year at university. They're struggling with lockdown and restrictions, but the school has helped them to be positive and resilient and helped them to manage the uncertainties in life as well. And staying with voice and finishing with voice, each and every year I have staff, parent and pupil drop-in sessions when my calendar is kept free so people can come along and talk about whatever they wish. And the pupils, especially the pupils, they generate excellent ideas every year, some of which, not all, but some of which we implement to make the school a better place. I could go on. 8 o'clock is fast approaching, but I think that's a good synopsis, a good summary of what I think makes this school a really special one.
Thank you very much, Headmaster, and all the panellists. That's all now for this evening. Thank you for joining us and for all your questions. We hope we've given you all the information you need. If there's anything more you want to know, please do have a look on the relevant pages of our website or make direct contact with us by phone or by email. We very much look forward to seeing you and welcoming your children to Solihull. Thank you. Good night.